Hello, welcome to Redshift Serverless tutorial using $300 free credit from AWS by Ganapati Devappa. This is the second tutorial in this series and you can go through the first tutorial for beginners using the link below. You can call this the intermediate tutorial. In this tutorial, let us recap about Redshift Serverless and what we learned about namespaces, workgroups and RPUs or resource processing units. Then I will go through the actual demo of configuring Redshift Serverless, setting limits and alerts, loading sample database, and running some queries. We learned earlier that Redshift Serverless became generally available from July 12, 2022. That means you can use it for production workloads and is fully supported by Amazon. With Redshift Serverless, no minimal Redshift cluster is required and you pay for storage and processing separately. Cost for processing and compute capacity is based on Redshift processing units called RPUs. When you submit a query, Redshift automatically provisions the base RPUs configured, scales up or down based on the workload, and releases the capacity once work is completed. This allows for periods when there is zero cost. Your data is also secure as Redshift automatically creates points of recovery every 30 minutes. You can easily migrate your existing Redshift clusters to serverless by loading the snapshots from existing clusters to the new cluster. In Redshift Serverless, there are no clusters to create. You create namespaces and workgroups. Namespace represents the data resources. Namespace is a collection of database objects and users. Workgroups represent the compute resources. A workgroup groups together compute resources like RPUs, VPC subnet groups, and security groups. You can create one or more namespaces and workgroups. A namespace can exist without any workgroup associated with it. Each namespace can have only one workgroup associated with it, and each workgroup can be associated with only one namespace. Now, let us recap how much does it really cost. There is a $300 credit provided by Amazon to use this service. I think this will be valid till October of 2022. So please check this when creating the namespace as it is shown on the Redshift Serverless console. The remaining credits are also shown as I will be showing you in the demo. The processing cost is $0.36 per RPU in the US East 1 region. This service is not currently available in all the regions and you may want to check if it is available in your region or provision the service only in the available region. The storage is called Redshift Managed Storage and is costed separately at $0.024 per gigabyte per month or $24 per terabyte per month. Note that usage of space is rounded to hours and 720 hours are considered for a month, whereas RPUs are counted in seconds and rounded to minutes for billing. Suppose you store 10 terabyte of data in your data warehouse and your processing run for 2 hours every day and use 64 RPUs per hour on an average, then your cost $1,622 per month, calculated as shown. Redshift also provides a query to find out your current compute usage using the query shown. We will run this query in the demo to find out how much we utilized in the demo. In the next demo, I will show you how to configure Redshift Serverless. In the previous demo, I had used default configuration, whereas in this demo, I will use custom configuration. I will show the remaining credit out of $300, check IAM permissions, set RPU limits and alerts as well as query timeout. Then I will load a sample database provided by AWS, run sample query, check the cost, and also show the usage graphs. Total cost for the demo is less than $5 and is covered by the $300 credit. So go ahead and practice the demo to become familiar with Redshift Serverless. My narration may not be very good with the demo, but please bear with me on that. In this demo, I will illustrate Amazon Redshift Serverless, how to configure it. In the previous demo, we had used the default configuration, whereas in this, we will set more configuration. We will set some resource limits. We will set some alerts. We will change the user, run some queries. We will also see the monitoring aspects with respect to data as well as resources, and then finally clean up the resources. Amazon Redshift is already here. I can type here also. I can right click, open link in new tab. Okay, I am on Redshift. Try Amazon Redshift Serverless. You see that I still have $279 credits from the original $300. Previously we used default settings, during which we set up an IAM policy. Let us check this policy. It takes us to IAM Management Console. Permissions. You see that it has Amazon Redshift all commands full access. This is a must for using Redshift Serverless. Plus we added this additional capability. Let us check this. You see that this has all S3 permissions: get object, list object, put object, delete object, like that. With this, we will be able to access data from S3 as well as store back data into S3. We will not change anything in this. Let us go back. So instead of default, let us use customized settings this time. Namespace, it should be 3 to 64, only lowercase characters only, and numbers and hyphen. So let me name it my Redshift Serverless. Let me change the database credentials. So admin, let me make it AWS user. Let me set my own password. Permissions, we have already set this. So select this. Data is always encrypted in Redshift, but you can customize the encryption. By default, it uses the AWS managed keys, whereas you can choose your own customer managed key or generate a AWS KMS key. Let us use the default for here. Work group name, let us use it to my serverless work group. Network and security, these are already set, so let us use these. Save configuration. It will take few minutes to set up, so let me fast forward for that. Okay, it is ready now. Let us hit continue. So our cluster is ready. It shows here our namespace, my Redshift Serverless, and also free trial credits remaining. It was the same as last time, $279. And it also shows that it is available till October 20th of 2022. Now query metrics. All of them will have no data right now. Let us look at this namespace. Click on the namespace. You'll see the storage used is 0 bytes as we have not yet created anything. Once you create some tables and data, then you will see this storage used. And don't worry if it becomes up to 1 GB, because for 1 gigabyte of data, it is only about 0.024 per month. Workgroup is available. My Redshift Serverless is available. You will see the endpoints here. So if you are connecting using JDBC or ODBC, you can copy these endpoints. Now let us look at some of the limits. The base capacity, that is the number of RPUs that will be used when you submit a query, is 128. After that, it will scale up or scale down depending on the computing capacity required for the query. The default is 128 RPUs. So let us edit this. So ours, we don't need this much. Let us reduce it. The minimum is 32, and if you see here, the maximum is 512. One RPU is equivalent to 16 gigabytes of memory. So let us just set it to 64, so that we get about 1 terabytes of memory. When you save this, the serverless is not available for a few minutes. So remember that it takes some time to set it up. Let us save changes. If you see here, status is modifying. So when it is modifying, if you go to edit again, it still shows 128. So let us wait for it to change. Here also it is showing 128. Okay, now it has become available and the base RPU capacity is changed to 64. It took almost 5 minutes for it to make this change. Let us also check the usage limits. Currently there are no usage limits. Let us manage these. There is also cross-region sharing usage limit you can add. You can add up to 4 limits. Let us add. The frequency can be daily, weekly or monthly. Let us choose daily. Let us say 200. This is low, but let us still do this. You can log it to a system table and query the table, or you can turn off user queries so that there is no more capacity used after this, or you can just create an alert so that the admin can see if there is an issue. And for an alert, it goes to an SNS topic. You can create an SNS topic, go to SNS and create that, or you can use an existing one. I already have one called Notify Me. SNS are basically simple notification service where you can send a message to an email that is already configured with SNS topic. Now I still have 3 more, so let me add one more. Let us say daily again. Let me say 3000. I don't want more than 3000 per day. Of course, in a corporate setting, these numbers will be quite high. Let me put it to turn off user queries. You can also set an alert for this to the same Notify Me. So it will stop user queries as well as it will also send me a notification. Now you can set this also cross-region daily. This is based on the usage limit in terms of terabytes. Let us say that I don't want anybody to query more than 1 terabytes. And this should be an alert again to the same SNS topic. Okay. Now let me save these changes. So these take effect immediately. You see this here, limits RPU 64, and I have the maximum RPUs daily 3000 RPU hours, and 200 RPUs we have an alert, and cross region data share 1 terabytes. Action, turn off user queries, alert on 200 RPUs and alert on 1 terabytes. You can also put some query limits on how much time the query may take. Let us set this also. Query execution timeout. This is the only one available now, and limit 14,400 seconds. Let me set 3,600, that is 1 hour as max. So query timeout is 3,600. With this, our cluster is finally set up. Now let us go to query data. Here we have Redshift Query Editor V2, that is version 2, which is quite sophisticated. Let's click here. It asks for connect to my serverless workgroup. Database is dev. Instead of federated user, let us use the database user. Let's set the user, AWS user that we set earlier. Password. Create connection. In dev, we have not created any tables. So it was 0. Let us go to sample dev. Ticket is a sample database of sales which has 7 tables as shown here. Sales, events, category, venue, listing, users and date. This is for any sports events that happen across the country, and ticket sales for those events. So it is not loaded. So let us load this sample database again. It asks you for permission, create. Note that if it gives some error, make sure you go back and correct your database user so that it is able to access S3. Okay, this database is ready. Along with loading the data, it also sets up some queries like sales table definition. This shows the columns in the database. Instead of this, we can use show table sales. Show table ticket.sales. You see the create table definition here. You can copy this and paste it to WordPad or Notepad. I am pasting it to Notepad. This shows the create table definition with all the columns and also the sort key and distribution style. Let us come back here. There are also other queries, sales for date. So this shows all the quantity sold for a particular date. You can run this query. 210 and sales per event, total quantity per buyer. This shows the total quantity for each buyer. Before running this, let us go back to our namespace. You see that because of the sample database, it is using about 18 or 19 gigabytes of data. Total 7 tables are there. Let us go back to query. Let us run some more queries. Let us go to this tab. Let us run another query. First, let us set the search path to ticket. Set search path to ticket. I have already run this once. Now, let us run this query. Okay, we got the top 5 agents. Let us check for another city. Try Boston. Result 1 is for the search path. Result 2, you see 5 here, Boston. These are the agents. Now let us go to query and database monitoring. We have my serverless work group. See the query runtimes here for different queries. It shows the duration and some queries run. Let us come here. It also loads the queries and loads. You can see here. You have select seller ID username. Let us look at this query. 2864. You can look at the SQL and copy this also. You can look at the query plan and also related metrics. See here that it has used about 44.8 compute capacity. You can also look at the resource monitoring. See here, it was 0, it's come up here, 51.2, 38.4, and then 51.2. And also the compute usage. This is the in terms of seconds, 2012 seconds, 13 and 705. So all these metrics you can see in resource monitoring as well as query and database monitoring. Alarms also you can see if there are any alarms. So most of these have insufficient data. You can check here. So for SNS alarms, it can be any in alarm, insufficient data or OK. So there are none of them are in alarm right now. Now, how do you find out how many RPUs we have used so far? For that, we can use the query that we used earlier. We will use this query to find out the number of RPUs. We have actually used less than 1 RPU so far. You see that we have used very less RPU because most of our queries have taken few milliseconds, not even 1 second. Now let us go back to our work group. Let us delete this work group. Delete. You may say that why delete it when you are not getting charged unless you use it. But you saw that there was some gigabytes of data that was the sample database. So we don't want to pay for that. We don't want to keep paying for that. So let us remove it. We don't want any snapshots. Delete. This may take a few minutes. So we have demonstrated how to create a namespace and workgroup in Amazon Serverless. We see that we are getting about $300 credit till October 20th. Then we loaded some sample data. Before that, we also set some limits so that our RPU capacity we reduced from 128 to 64. Then we also put some limits for alerts and also to stop any queries. Then we loaded the sample database, ran some queries, checked our usage. We also saw some graphs on query and database monitoring about queries as well as RPUs. Thank you for watching this demo. I hope you learned something from it. Bye for now. Did you like what you learned in this lesson? Redshift Serverless is a very interesting product. I am sure you are excited to use this in your organization and push towards serverless computing. Serverless is the future of computing. Organizations do what they are best at, business management, and Amazon does what they are best at, data processing. We looked at features of Redshift Serverless and also a demo of how to configure it, set resource limits, load a sample database, run the sample query, and also checked the usage. We cleaned up everything at the end. Best of all, it did not cost us a penny as it was within the $300 credit provided by AWS. What are you waiting for? Claim this credit and share it with your friends and family so that everyone you know takes advantage of this. Amazon also has introduced EMR Serverless, which I will cover in another lesson. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and bye for now.